this video, we'll demonstrate receipting money in UAN. There are three types of receipts you can enter into UAN. First, standard. This is the most common day-to-day receipt that can be revenue from any number of sources. Then there's interest. This type is only used for interest earned from your checking or investment accounts. And finally, memo receipts. These are used less frequency when charges are deducted before you receive the money. We'll focus on standard and memo receipts in this video. But what account code should I use? Often in a panic, this is the first question we get from new fiscal officers. Remember, UAN support is not authorized to answer this kind of question. I know that's not comforting, but you have many other resources to get the answer. First, you can look at the previous fiscal officer's receipt postings. Keep in mind, if the previous fiscal officer was cited on their last audit for posting revenue to the wrong account, you would never want to use that example for the account code. But if you are following in the footsteps of someone who did a very good job, you can use the receipt detail report to find what account code they used in similar receipts. We'll look at that in a moment. However, if you can't trust your receipt history, or if this is a new type of revenue, your next step is to review the Uniform Chart of Accounts to get the complete code descriptions. If you're still stumped, then contact an auditor assigned to your region or local government services. Click Contact Us at ohioauditor.gov to find their phone number or email address. Now we're ready to roll into the UAN software demonstrations. We'll start by looking at the receipt detail report I just mentioned. Under Accounting, Reports and Statements, Receipt Reports. The receipt detail is the first report in the group. The date range of the report defaults to the last month a receipt posted, but I want to see more receipt examples, so I can change the date to the year, and that'll show me every receipt that posted this year. I can even change the drop-down menu to a different year if I want to look at more examples. Select all within your range and click either Print or Display. Well, there's no mystery in the report title. The receipt detail includes all details of each individual receipt. Sure, you could have paged through hundreds of receipts by hand, or just display this report like this, which I think is much easier. Notice you're going to be able to see the post date, the vendor, and the account code. Again, if you trust your previous receipt records at your entity, this is a good place to start if you're unsure what account codes to use. To add a receipt in UAN, we open Accounting, Transactions, Receipts. If we have any receipts that are a work in progress, they will be in the batch list. To add a new one, click on Add and choose one of the three types of receipts. Our first deposit is an example of when the fiscal officer does all of the banking. This means that while other people may be collecting money, the fiscal officer is doing all of the depositing. Our deposit ticket shows that we have 3 items to receipt for the one deposit, cash plus 2 checks. We'll start with $150 on the deposit ticket. Well, this is cash that was dropped off by us by our Parks and Rec manager, Sally Bay, with receipt copy. When other people are collecting the money, other than the fiscal office, they should have their own receipt book. When they write a receipt to a customer, they should turn in a duplicate of that receipt book to the fiscal office. That's what we have here. This will be a standard receipt. The first thing you should always do is select the source or the vendor that you've made available for accounting receipts. I'll scroll through my pick list and I should be able to find Sally Bay. There she is, the Parks and Rec director. Next, we want to enter in a meaningful purpose. When the person who collected the money includes the receipt copy from the receipt book, always include a cross-reference to that receipt number that they provided to you. In the deposit ticket field, you can enter a deposit ticket number to group your receipts together on your bank reconciliation. In our example, it's deposit ticket number 12. If I enter number 12 for every receipt in this deposit, it will total all three on the bank reconciliation, making it a lot easier to clear all three when you see the total deposit on your bank statement. This is especially true when you have a lot of different checks from different sources. Next, we enter the dates. Most of the time, these three dates will be the exact same date. The receipt date is the date you receive the money. The deposit date is the date you take it to bank or that it's automatically deposited. And the post date is your best estimation of the date the deposit will post on your bank statement. For example, if you make a deposit on Saturday morning, for instance, and your bank has a policy of posting all Saturday deposits the following Monday, then you would enter Saturday as your deposit date, and then the following Monday as your post date, the date you expect it to post at the bank. But our example is like most. But most of the time, your receipts will be all on the same day. We received the money today, we deposited it the same day, and we expect it to post, like most of the time, that same day. Next, we need to add the revenue code. Our example, our account is going to be out of Fund 2171. So I can just scroll down to the account code that I need in this fund. There it is, which is $150 cash received from Sally. Click the arrow or enter to bring it up to my distribution list. It's nice that we can click Remember Deposit Ticket until form closes and remember dates until form closes. That'll save a little time. Then click Save. The second item on my ticket is a check from Faraway Township for their fire contract. Once again, I can start with the source, and this time I know that I can start typing far away, and it looks like I've added them to my list of vendors, and it just narrows it down to make it really easy for me to select that township, and I'll put in a purpose. I've already got my deposit ticket number and receipt dates because of those little check boxes. So go straight to the revenue distribution. And my fund is 2191. And by typing in that fund number, I can really narrow down the list there and pick the revenue code that I need for this one. Put in the amount and save. And now both of my standard receipts are in batch, so I can close. I've got another check, but I'll go ahead and post these two standard receipts first. Notice if I wanted a second copy to file in a different location, I could always increase the number of copies. Looks like they printed out okay. Let's take a look. Our final check on the deposit ticket is from the county auditor for the first tax settlement of the year. It's a big check for our township, so we made sure we got it deposited right away. For our demonstration, we've included a very simplified version of the tax settlement statement. It requires a memo receipt because we need to show the gross taxes collected and the amount of fees applied by the county to determine how much applies to each fund. The total gross revenue minus the total fees will be the net amount of this receipt. In other words, the net is the amount of the check we received, and that's how much cash will increase upon receiving it. But we need to determine the revenue and expenditures accurately among each fund. We've really simplified this so that it's easy to see the fund distribution. It is very likely your statement will be more complicated. If you're new to this, you may need to contact your county auditor for help interpreting your tax settlement statement so you know which fund applies for each item. We'll add the memo receipt in the same place under Accounting, Transactions, Receipts. Click the Add button and choose Memo. As you can see, there's an additional section. It's got the same area for revenue as a standard receipt, receipt distribution. That's where you'd put your revenue codes. And then your memo charges are going to go down below that, the fees to the county auditor. Now I'll type in our vendor or source, and we'll find the county auditor and enter in a purpose. Well, this is on the same deposit ticket as our other two standard receipts, so that's deposit ticket number 12, and it'll therefore be the same dates. Now, looking at our tax settlement form, we've got our funds broken down. I can enter the revenue or the gross amount by fund, and I'll select the funds that I need. A little trick here that you may find helpful. It depends on how your account codes are structured at your particular entity. If you click on the name when you're choosing the account code rather than immediately typing it in, you can see you can click on the column headings and it will sort by whichever accounting heading that you choose. So in some cases, depending on alphabetically how your account codes fall, sometimes it's a little bit easier to sort by the account name and then choose accounts that way rather than typing them in. For the general. Now that all the revenue is entered, I can just check the status in the top right to see what the total receipts are. And that comes to $353,925. Yep, that exactly matches my total for the gross and the settlement statement. So I'll move on to the memo charges for our tax collection fees. Well, that looks a little bit different. First, you have to choose the type. Well, your choices for type are going to be purchase order, blank certificate, or direct. In this case, we don't have any purchase orders open for the county auditor, but we do have blanket certificate. Now, if we look here at the tax settlement statement, you'll see that there's one thing that we have an asterisk next to, the county health district collection fees. That one, for our township, it requires an appropriation account code that requires a purchase order or blanket certificate. Well, in the rare cases that your account code for these types of memo receipts from the county auditor involves a purchase order or blanket, we recommend a blanket certificate with no vendor specified. I've already got a blanket certificate posted for that purpose. I can select BC and then I can pick it or type it in from my blanket certificate list. Now, what's more typical is for at least county auditor settlements is that most of the charges that you'll incur will be direct charge accounts, meaning they don't require, per the uniform chart of accounts, a blanket certificate or purchase order. And that's the case with ours. So the next ones will all be direct charges. And I'll just run through entering those collection fees. Great, so now we have all of our charges in. Looking at our status ticker in the right, we can see our total charges is 2008-1660. That matches my collection total on my settlement statement, and my net amount grand total of 351,108.40 exactly matches our net on the settlement statement. So I'm ready to save, close, and post and print. Looks like it printed okay. Our second deposit example illustrates what it looks like when someone other than the fiscal officer does the banking. So in larger governments, maybe only the fiscal officer is depositing the money at the end of the day. However, there are some smaller entities that might have several people collecting and depositing, and they turn in the money at the bank and bring the fiscal officer a copy of their collection receipt and a duplicate deposit ticket. In this case, the fiscal officer is simply going to post a receipt in UAN. In our sample township, we have a cemetery, and the cemetery sexton has deposited money at the bank and has provided us with a copy of the deposit ticket and duplicate receipts. Since the township uses cemetery software to track details of each receipt, the fiscal officer can enter one receipt in UAN. The total of the receipts is equal to the total of the deposit ticket he's turned in. Let's go forward and post that receipt. We can enter the receipt by clicking Add, Standard, and like the others, if we've set the cemetery sexton up as a vendor available in receipts, then we can add him there, and he's right there at the top of our list. We're going to enter in a description. Since we have the copy of his collection receipts, we can enter in the receipt numbers we received from Barry. Now, there's no deposit ticket number because it was not deposited by the fiscal officer. There's going to be just one deposit line for this on the bank statement, but more than likely, the receipt, deposit, and post dates are probably going to be different The cemetery sexton probably turned this in to the fiscal officer in the morning after he made a deposit. By looking at my deposit ticket, I can see he deposited this at the bank yesterday. So I want my receipt date to be April 4th, my deposit date to be April 4th, and my post date, the date I expect it to post on the bank statements, also to be April 4th. Now to enter the revenue. The receipts he gave us will have to be looked at to determine the account code I use. Let's see, the total of the cemetery lots for their sales in the cemetery fund, 2041. The total adds up to $1,600, and I see sale cemetery lots, so I'll pick that. And then we've got opening and closing fees, and we should have an account for that as well, and we do. And that came to $700 total. The grand total of my receipt matches the deposit ticket of $2,300, so we are good to go. Click Save and Close, and we can post this deposit. And there it is. Our third deposit is an example of an automatic deposit to the primary checking account. This may also be referred to as a direct deposit. The fiscal officer checked their banking activity. He went online and noticed a $4,610.22 deposit from the Treasurer of State. Revenue from the state is usually in the form of direct deposit. You have to access the Ohio Department of Taxation's website for details when you receive money like this. Also, more and more counties are using direct deposit, and they're sending you the details about the money either in the mail, or others may require you to look it up on their website like the state does. Now we'll add a standard receipt for this direct deposit. Click Add Standard, and we'll type in Treasurer of State. Purpose is gas tax revenue. Now, it's a good habit whenever money is direct deposited, make sure you make a note of that in the purpose. Again, there's no deposit ticket number since this was automatically deposited. And because of that, all three dates will be the same. We can see through our online banking that it hit our bank on April 1st. So I can enter all three dates and backdate them to April 1st. Now we'll enter the revenue code. Save and close, and post and print. Well, that wraps up our receipt examples for now. We've covered standard and memo receipts. If you haven't already, be sure to watch the video on interest receipts. Don't forget to report all of your UEN training for Fiscal Integrity Act credit. Following the Auditor State's guidelines and deadlines on the training portal.